Hi, everybody. It's Julia, your trusted travel expert, helping you find that je ne sais quoi wherever you are in the world. And this week, I wanted to continue my series on ideal itineraries for visiting our national parks out west here in the US, because who knows how long we will be kind of held within our mostly our borders. But I know that visiting Yellowstone, for example, is huge on a lot of people's bucket lists, and it's a little bit out in the middle of nowhere in vast open areas of the West. And so not a lot of people really know the best way to see and do it. So I wanted to give you some pointers. Now I'm going to outline a road trip that would go from Salt Lake all the way around to Denver, which does include a lot of driving. If you are okay with flying in smaller planes, you could easily fly into Jackson and out of Rapid City to cut out sort of Denver and Salt Lake. But those are interesting big capital towns out west. So if you haven't been to see them, they are worthwhile. Especially like Salt Lake, if you wanted to spend a couple days, besides seeing the Mormon Temple, you could go up to Park City, which has a lot of great stuff to see. Not even just the fact that it has a bunch of ski resorts in winter. It's also still got a really cool Olympic training park that you can go and visit and do some fun things with. But once you leave Salt Lake City, the next most interesting and fabulous place you want to stop at is Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which is home or right outside of Grand Teton National Park. And the Tetons are just stupidly beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful places that I've seen. And of course, there is tons to do. Not only is Jackson a really cool town, Jackson Hole is a really neat town, but the Tetons are a really lovely, lush, gorgeous area where you can go rafting, hiking, biking. You can see moose, you can see bear probably. There are ranches. There's also, I mentioned this last week, the Aman group of hotels has the Aman Ghani, which is an amazing kind of 5-star resort up there. And there are also really cool dude ranches around in Jackson. So that is definitely a place that you do not want to skip, and you might want to spend a couple days at. And then from Jackson up to Yellowstone is only about 2 or 3 hour drive, depending on which part of Yellowstone you go to. And so that's why it's sort of the best entry point to get to Yellowstone. There are lots of different areas inside Yellowstone you would want to visit. And there's sort of like a central loop drive that you would want to do over a couple different days. There's Old Faithful Inn, and Old Faithful, the geysers and all the thermal activity, all the kind of bubbling hot springs areas and stuff like that. There's the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, which is nowhere near the same as the actual Grand Canyon, but it is very beautiful with amazing waterfalls. And then you also have Lake Yellowstone, which is sort of in the center of the park. And so all those three are sort of the big three areas that you might want to visit. And so some people like to split their stay and stay maybe one night at Old Faithful and one night on the lake. Those are the two inns, Lake Yellowstone Hotel and Old Faithful Inn. Those are the two most historic and most high in demand places to stay inside Yellowstone, and they do book up in advance. You definitely want to be, checking and seeing if you can get reservations kind of 6 months to even more in advance if you know that you definitely want to stay at those places. There are lots of other places to stay in the park scattered around. There's some cabins. Grant Village, I know, has a bunch of different options. And then if you're not able to get inside the park, West Yellowstone is the town that's at the gate, at the west gate of the park. And that, of course, has, your standard motels and little hotels that you could want to stay in. That's in Montana. And then on the east side of Yellowstone, it takes about 3 hours to get from West Yellowstone all the way across to, there is a little bit of a village right as you exit the east side of the park, but not really. You're really going to want to head to Cody, Wyoming. And Cody, Wyoming is an attraction in and of itself besides its proximity to Yellowstone. It is probably a good hour and a half, if not more, from most of the main sites of Yellowstone. So that's why I like to start in Jackson, kind of do the loop of Yellowstone, and then head out towards Cody. Now, here is a choice. You could, after Yellowstone, instead of going west to Cody, or east, excuse me, into Wyoming, you could go north into Montana. And, Bozeman is only a couple hours north of the park. But then Glacier National Park, which is the other amazing national park you would definitely want to go see, that's another like 5 hours north of Bozeman. So, and then there are also so many wonderful dude ranches and glamping options and so much great stuff to see in Montana that you could do all of that in one trip. But I like to think of Montana as its own sort of animal and its own trip, just because Glacier is so much further north than any kind of airport you'd want to fly in and out of. If you do want to go up to Glacier and you can't get into the in-park lodging, which is even more limited, then you want to look at Kalispell and Whitefish, I believe, are the towns that are sort of right outside the gate of Glacier National Park. But so I'm continuing east into Wyoming. Like I said, Cody is a fantastic little town, big on rodeos. You have to go to the rodeo in Cody. Done it twice, and it's fantastic. It's sort of the home of Buffalo Bill, so everything's Buffalo Bill Village, and there's a really great Native American museum and stuff in Cody. So it's more than just an overnight stop, which is nice because then you have to kind of cross Wyoming. And gotta love Wyoming. It's got great stuff in it, but it takes a while to get across. You can break it up. There's a ranch like about halfway between Cody and the Black Hills of South Dakota, which is our goal destination. You have to go through the Bighorn, either National Forest, I believe is what that is. You could go up into Montana. Near Billings is the Little Bighorn battlefield, Custer's Last Stand. So if you're really big into the Indian Wars, you may want to go look at that. But you're going to want to stop somewhere like the ranch at Ucross is where I know about. That's a really lovely little family ranch. It's sort of near Sheridan, Wyoming. And then you've got another kind of 4 or 5 hour drive. This is the problem. Wyoming's really big. And before you get to the Black Hills of South Dakota. And the main city here is Rapid City, but you want to get out of Rapid City. If you can, stay in Keystone. Again, there's a great ranch kind of property there. And Keystone is your home base for visiting Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse Monument, and also the Badlands National Park. Now, Mount Rushmore is the most famous of those things. Obviously, it's the 4 presidents on the stone. And it's really cool to see. It's a really kind of patriotic and interesting history lesson. If you're at all interested in Native history, though, you will learn that we basically lied and stole and built that in historic or sacred in Native lands. So to sort of do their own thing, they are building and have been building a monument to the great Native General Crazy Horse. And that's going to be way bigger than Mount Rushmore when and if they ever finish it. And going to that site is a very interesting juxtaposition with Mount Rushmore because obviously there's no federal funding being used. It's really this one guy's passion project to get this monument to Crazy Horse built. And what is there already is sort of impressive enough that you can see how cool it's going to be, again, when and if they ever finish it. Plus, they have a really great Native museum there with a lot of really cool art from lots of different tribes. And it's a touristy spot, but it is worthwhile to go and see, and they've got a good place for lunch. And then if you have time and if you're not exhausted, Badlands National Park is really, really interesting. It's a very unique kind of land formation, kind of canyons. It's not red rock, it's sandstone, I believe. And it's super fun to go drive around. So, 2 or 3 nights in that sort of Keystone, Rapid City, South Dakota area would definitely be worth your while. And so then you can drive straight down to Denver, but it's about 6 hours. So you can break up that trip by stopping in Cheyenne, Wyoming. If you stop in Cheyenne, you can easily get to Rocky Mount National Park in Estes Park, Colorado, before you get down to Denver. But so you see like all of these different choices and options. There's so much to see out there, so much you can do, and you are going to need to prepare yourself for multiple 4 or 5 hour drive days. And those drives are sometimes very scenic. It is very scenic, but it's very, I mean, we're getting to the plains there. So, wide open spaces and, lots of ranch stays. And I would love to help you figure out your road trip version, whether it's a short week just focused on Yellowstone or whether you've got 2 weeks to really spread out and learn a lot more about our Plains Indians and history of that part of the world. So that's it for this week. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.